You're listening to the Fanalist Podcast. Follow on Twitter at TheFanalystPod. Here's your host, Andrew Morrow.
Who would have thought? The Toronto Maple Leafs won something. Yeah, they got the first overall pick for the upcoming NHL Draft, and analysts, the consensus is that Austin Matthews will be the number one pick heading to Toronto. Tyson, do you agree?
I would say so. I mean, Line A seems to be the favorable number two. I don't think it's that close, though. I don't think it's as far as McDavid and Eichel.
But what if a video comes out of Austin Matthews hitting a bong through a gas mask?
Well, I would hope that Toronto would look the other way and draft him anyway, honestly. Yeah, but, I mean, let's be honest here. There isn't a McDavid in this draft. It's not like Toronto is winning this unbelievable Super Bowl-like event. They're winning a very respectable first overall pick. But, I mean, if it was last year's draft, he might be drafted third behind Eichel. I mean, that's just the matter of the fact. But
No. Now, I disagree with that. I think now McDavid, he's a bit of, he's kind of got that superstar in him, and people have been watching him for a long time. And Austin Matthews is, a little underrated in that aspect, okay? Matthews is, as we said, the consensus number one pick among analysts, and I think he's exactly kind of what Babcock wants to work with. He's a solid two-way center, and he's already NHL ready. He's going to be a number one franchise center for somebody. And aren't the Maple Leafs looking for a guy like this following the departure of Matt Sundin oh so long ago? And he's being compared to Anze Kopitar and Jonathan Toews.
Right, but I mean, like, all number one overall draft picks get compared to players in the NHL.
It's true.
I don't think that Matthews is a standout, nearly the standout that McDavid was. McDavid is arguably one of the greatest junior players in our generation, compared to Sidney Crosby, I would say, in that regards. But I mean, if we're talking first overall draft picks, I think Matthews isn't an over-the-top great one. I think he's a very solid one for Toronto. He's exactly what they're looking for. I think they'd be stupid to draft, or probably to trade him. But I think he's over Line A. I think this draft overall is solid, at least the top five. The other Finnish player, Puljujarvi, he's a solid number three, I believe, in most analysts' census or consensus or whatever you want to say. Consensus.
Yeah, they're mock drafts.
They're mock drafts, exactly. But I feel like Toronto won something here in the fact that they finally got a first overall, but it is what it is.
Well, I haven't seen Austin Matthews play that much just because here we don't really get his main highlights. Well, we do get some highlights, but we don't get to watch full games of him, so I can't really make a valid opinion on him. But watching the potential number three player, Puljujarvi, play, I watched him in the World Juniors. This dude was unbelievable. This guy was all over the ice, worked hard, scored goals. I think his line had like 10 points in like 2 games.
Yeah, him and Line A were lighting it up.
Exactly. And it's funny because when I was looking earlier today, they had Austin Matthews. Andrew, you said that he was a top number one center for our team, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They projected him being a second-line center for the Leafs, which
who? If they get Steve Stamkos, then maybe for a few years he'd be on the second line.
Nazem Kadri?
It was Bozak, I'm pretty sure.
To Bozak,
which I'm questionable. Like I'm with you, Andrew. I would have him on the top line, see what he can do there. Because honestly, right now I think he's a better player than Tyler Bozak. But I think that they're going to get him. I think that it's going to be crazy in Toronto next year. I'm excited to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, those that have watched Matthews play overseas a lot, and I haven't, so I'm not going to pretend like I have, but those that have seen him play will tell you that he makes everyone on the ice better. And he is exactly what Mike Babcock needs in Toronto. He needs a number one center to build around for this franchise. And, if Mike Babcock's already sold, then I feel like there's no way that Austin Matthews leaves, because this does not seem like an ownership group that they don't want to get rid of something they like. If they got if they have that piece that they think is going to take them the way, they're not going to get rid of it. But if they have any doubts of Austin Matthews and the Arizona Coyotes come knocking with an offer, okay, if they come knocking with an offer for this year's 7th round pick, next year's 1st round pick, and Max Domi, do you at least have to listen to them? Because that 7th round pick can be Nylander's brother, and then who knows what you get next year, 1st round. Maybe a goalie.
To me, I would probably take that deal.
Because right now, the Phoenix Coyotes have a different objective than most other NHL teams. Okay? The Toronto Maple Leafs goal is to go through this rebuild and then win. And a lot of teams, that's the goal, is to win, because winning cures everything. In Arizona, they're very unique. They've gone through ownership ups and downs like a toilet seat at a Taco Bell. Okay? They are just all over the place. It's disgusting. But Austin Matthews, hometown Scottsdale, Arizona boy, I feel like if the Phoenix Coyotes feel like they have the opportunity to bring him in, I mean, Max Domi, gone. They wouldn't even know. Like, let's be honest. Sure, he's been lighting it up in Arizona, but if they bring in Austin Matthews, someone like that can slip away without the fan base even blinking an eye.
Well, I would say that I would take this deal because Austin Matthews, he could be a potential bust. You don't know. He's probably not going to be, from what all the analysts say, but he could be a bust. I'm a Max Domi fan. I like the way he's played. I like the way he scores goals, sets up his teammates in creative ways. And honestly, he had a really good season this year. One of the top rookies in the league.
He was in the running for Rookie of the Year for half the season or more than that, 3/4.
Exactly. So if Arizona came to me and said, "We will offer you Max Domi, a 7th rounder and a 1st rounder,"
or 7th round first, the 7th pick of this year's draft.
7th pick. My bad. Sorry,
yeah, no problem.
I would seriously listen, and it'd be a hard choice. I might take that deal.
Now, Andrew, are you saying that they would they would offer this trade based on the fact that it would bring more fans to the arena?
I think Austin Matthews will sell more tickets.
I disagree. I think that look at what Florida's going through right now. The reason why they're getting more fans is because they're winning. Now, look at what division they're in. The Arizona Coyotes.
Now, here's the thing.
They're in a horrible. This is where they can hop on to a division that's tanking right now. Vancouver's going downhill, and I mean Anaheim. They got off to a horrible start this season. They somehow got to the number 1 spot. I think that if they're able to piece some players together, they can make a run for the playoffs, and that will sell more tickets than trading for a hometown boy.
Now, Austin Matthews isn't just going to show up in Phoenix and sell tickets because he plays for them. He's going to sell tickets because he's going to be a great player. There's no doubt Austin Matthews, the bust potential is very low. This guy, he's already NHL ready. He's been playing in a men's league for over a season already. He is ready for the NHL. I'll say ready one more time just because, right now in Phoenix, he can help them, not winning anything big, but he can help them win more games than they are currently. With the Maple Leafs, if you get Matthews in there right now, okay, he's going, by the time contract talks come around, he's going to be a little off center with the rest of the rebuild. Okay, if you were to get rid of Austin Matthews, who's ready to go play right now and win them games and get them higher away from that max draft pick next season, instead bring in Alex Nylander, throw him back in the Marlies, go win a couple cups with them, because, the Marlies team has just been incredible. I mean, Mitch Marner is going to be joining them next year. You wanted to talk about McDavid, how he lit up the OHL. Mitch Marner is scoring more points per game in the playoffs right now than he did. There's a lot of reasons for Leaf fans to be excited right now. And I feel like if you did, and if Arizona is going to give you a good offer like this, you have to listen. You can't just say, no, Austin Matthews, that's the only thing. That's how the Leafs make mistakes.
Now, do they do this trade if they get Stamkos?
Well, there's a curie. That's a good point, because Stamkos, he is looking to be contending next year. He wants to win a cup now. He's 26 years old. He wants to compete right away, which is why Montreal and Detroit are kind of more interesting landing spots for him, because Toronto's not going to compete for 3 to 5 years before they make the playoffs.
And I think he's fine with that. I think with the fact that Mike Babcock is the coach and they have a very clear pathway of success down the road, I think he's fine with that. I think he's fine with not being able to contend for the first couple years. But
if he is fine with that,
he's a hometown boy.
Then that's huge, okay? Because he's come out and he said he isn't. Now, we can't take everything that someone says, 100%. That's
he's still with the Lightning.
Right, exactly. He can't, oh yeah, I want to go play the Leafs. You can't say that when you're with the Lightning. That's just hugely, that's a big issue.
Now, what if they go to what if the Lightning make the finals this year, the Stanley Cup finals? Would that maybe tell Stamkos, okay, maybe I want to stay here?
Honestly, I think he's already made up his mind. I think it's already made up in his head right now. I think that if he's content on going to Toronto, he's going to Toronto no matter what. But if he's not, I think
I would agree with you.
If he's going to leave Tampa Bay, I think he's going to Toronto, because Tampa Bay is competing. They're contending still. Why would he move somewhere if it's not Toronto?
More money?
True, but if you're saying that he wants to contend, there's not many places out there that are
this is what it comes down to for every superstar in the NHL. When Stamkos is healthy, he's arguably one of the top 15 players in this league. Okay? When he's going top 15, top 20 player,
I would say top 10.
Well, there you go. So, it comes to a point in every great player's career where he has to choose between where he wants to be and where the money is. Now in Toronto, it's a unique spot where if they want to offer him the right kind of money, and I mean, the Maple Leafs can also afford to give him the right kind of money because they have a lot of players right now signed, ready long term. If they go get Austin Matthews, they pick him up, he's ready to start playing right now. Then you have Marner, you have Nylander, you have Kadri, and you have Riley locked up long term, and you have Bozak and JVR until 2017, 2018, even Gardner until 2019. You kind of have a nice solid core here that you can start building around. This plan kind of picks up some steam all of a sudden. You know what I mean? And you've got Kasperi Kapanen in the minors. You've got a few other guys as well who, very shortly are going to be ready to hop in. So, I mean, if the Leafs can sell him and pick up Stamkos, I mean, then the only question is, do you put Stamkos and Matthews together, or does Stamkos play on the first line right now, and then in 4 years when Matthews, peaks, you put him up, or do they play alongside each other? Babcock in Detroit loved having two centers on every line. You don't really know what to do. But I agree with you when you say Stamkos has already made up his mind. He knows what he wants to do. It just matters when we find out what he wants to do.
And we saw how crazy people went when they found out that Toronto was getting the first overall pick.
They'll parade for this guy.
Oh, my goodness. And the fact that the Raptors have made it past the first round, who knows how the baseball season is going to go for the Toronto Blue Jays. I mean, already 2016 is looking very promising for Toronto sports. I mean, this would cap it all off, though, I think.
If they cap it off, I don't know how much more.
It's a hockey city, in my opinion.
Yeah, so, you could have, 4 streets back-to-back by, in 2 years' time, where you got Stamkos Street, you got Batista Street, you got Donaldson Street, and then you got DeMar DeRozan Street or whatever. You could definitely – that's the kind of thing that happens in
But what
Toronto.
if that DeMar DeRozan Street is in L.A.?
Well, if he wins a championship this year, they'll think a lot more of him, but he's going to be gone. That's a whole nother conversation. But, as for Austin Matthews going to Toronto, I think whether, if you keep him, he's going to be solid. He's going to be a great piece there for a long time. But if you get the feeling that Matthews doesn't want to be there and Arizona's willing to, fork out the right pieces, I think you at least have to listen. Thanks for tuning into the Fanalist Podcast. I'm Andrew, and you can follow us at TheFanalystPod. Now let's talk about the NHL Draft Lottery. It's entertaining. Great. The ping pong balls, it's kind of dramatic. There's a lot riding on it for a lot of huge teams. But do you find it stupid? I'll say stupid. Do you find it stupid that the fate of so many franchises is left up to a couple ping pong balls?
Honestly, I understand why they do it. I understand the entertainment value that it brings.
Because they can't figure out anything else.
Well, not only that, but think about how many people were tuning in to see who got the first overall pick.
1.5 million views in Canada.
Right, and that's pretty big for an event that's happening 2 months from now.
Yeah, no, it's a nothing night that it used to mean nothing.
Well, that's because the Leafs were good contenders on getting the number 1 overall pick.
It's
right.
True.
At the end of the day, it drives people to tune in and watch. If they create another system, I don't think it would be as popular as the one they have now. I think the one they have now, though, is flawed. The fact that Edmonton could have won it 2 years in a row, and how many years in the last how many years? But
that's what happens when you leave it up to luck, right? Now, what I think they need to do is, let's look at what it used to be. Okay, what it used to be is that when you get to the end of the NHL regular season, you rank all the teams in order, and whoever finished dead last gets the first pick. Next in line, you get the second, which started a bit of a phase where people were accusing other teams of tanking.
Because they were.
Of course. And who wouldn't, right? If you can, let's go lose this last game, we'll get one better spot in the draft. When you look at the NFL draft that just completed, you see teams try and move up 1 or 2 spots. How much you have to give for those 1 or 2 spots? Why not just give away a game or 2 at the end of the season? So I understand that by adding this new ping pong ball random draft lottery, it was an improvement. But if you improve something and you make it good, but you can improve it again and make it great, why wouldn't you? There's the system they've talked about where you take the teams that are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs and you create like a draft point system where once you're fully eliminated, you can start earning points that rank you in a draft, in a draft order. Now, what that means is when the Toronto Maple Leafs are dead out of it with a month to go in the season, they have another 10 or 12 games to go where they're out there trying to win every game because the franchise wants that number one pick. Wouldn't that be better hockey when the Washington Capitals come to Toronto and Washington's trying to go for the President's Trophy and the Leafs actually care to try and stop them?
Well, how many other teams are there that have a month left and are out of the playoffs?
That's the idea. So this season you have Toronto, Edmonton,
right, but they're only
Columbus,
like 3 or 4 teams
at the bottom earning points ahead of everyone else. So they get more time to earn points to try and earn that draft spot. Meanwhile, you have a team like the Boston Bruins who are eliminated on the last day. They don't even earn a point. So they're right at the bottom where they should be in a draft. It's a perfect system in my mind that if anything, it won't be organic in the sense that it's where the team's finished, you give them an order, but that system's flawed. Teams tank. That's something that's always going to take place if they let it happen. Now, you can have teams start to fight for those games and make things a little more interesting.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right with the tanking idea that with the system they have now, teams are still going to tank to try and get the highest percentage, The Leafs kind of did that the last few games, not putting all their greatest players in the lineup and getting guys from the minors and calling them up. But I don't think that your system that you just said is also perfect by any means. But I think the way they have it now is that I like the fact that a team like Winnipeg, who was supposed to be 6th, they were 6th last, I believe, and they ended up being second last.
Yeah,
I think that system is still better than the one that you made. It's more entertaining as well. I think at the end of the day, sports are meant to be entertaining. They're meant to drive viewership, make money, and this is the way they do that. I don't think a few close games that are meaningful for a top team like Washington are going to make it more interesting for fans. I don't think that they're going to have any more fans tune in to watch the Leafs get blown out by the Washington Capitals, because the bottom line is they're going to get blown out by the Washington Capitals no matter what.
Okay, well, what I completely agree with that this needs to be talked about. They need to always be looking at how to make things better. And you bring up a good point. It's all about entertainment, right? The draft lottery, it brings a lot of entertainment. GMs are playing with a draft simulator the weeks leading up. Who would have thought that, like fans, we find those kind of things, we play around with them, run the draft 100 times. You had the Canucks GM come out a week before the draft and say, oh, I did a draft and I think he said I didn't like where we ended up. I mean, it has nothing to do with it, but there's an entertaining element to that. Now, my challenge to that is if you make teams have to go out there and fight for draft points and try and win games, I would rather have those extra 20, 30 entertaining games during the regular season than one draft night.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning into the Fanalist Podcast. I'm Tyson, and you can follow us at TheFanalystPod.